Over time, there's been greater forces and a lot of money being thrown at these developers, and you can't blame them. They're human beings. If someone comes up to you and says, hey, here's $1 million, if you implement this thing, most people won't even notice, like, you're probably going to do it. Bitcoin has given me full freedom to control my money and my assets. And Nostr has given me full control to have full control over my digital data. May that be posts, may that be videos, may that be pictures. To me, it's crazy that we've had so many huge exchanges collapse, going all the way back from MTGOX over a decade ago to Quadriga, and yet still people trust these exchanges. I don't know if it's a lack of responsibility or plain laziness, or perhaps fear of taking full responsibility. On the bull Bitcoin aspect, since 2014 when they launched, they never custodied your Bitcoin. You always need to input your address. You wire your euros or whatever currency you're using to your account in exchange. And then when you want to buy or set a limit order, you need to put in your address of your cold storage so it goes straight in there. And I think that's a phenomenal way to actually push people to self-custody, where if you don't input the address of your cold storage, you can't buy the Bitcoin.
Hi, Gigi. How are you doing? Everything fine on your end?
Hey, Robin. Everything's great. Thanks for having me on the show. We're kind of switching roles this time. But yeah, doing really good. As I told you off the record, just back from a 1-month-long vacation with a family. So feeling very refreshed.
What Bitcoin allows you to do, which is amazing.
That's true. As I told you, thank you, Satoshi. If there would be no Satoshi, there would be no Gigi on a 1-month-long holiday, traveling the world with his little offsprings and enjoying some time off, touching grass, dipping my toes in seawater. So yeah, it's a blessing.
Bitcoin went up so much that Gigi went on a holiday.
Yeah. I mean, it was a long time coming. I mean, this is something that doesn't happen overnight. It's the discipline of DCA over many years that allows you to take these decisions. So I think that's kind of an anecdote. It's not like I went aped all in 12 months ago and now I'm taking a 1 month off. It's been a long time in the making. And when you want to, take some time off to just decompress, recalibrate your thoughts and just recharge mentally and physically, you can do so when you live on a Bitcoin standard.
I love that, man. And maybe before we get started with all the topics, and maybe also with the holiday topic, give us a brief overview of who you are and especially why you're excited about Bitcoin.
Sure. So great question. So as some of you know, I'm Gigi. I run my own Bitcoin podcast, which is called Your Bitcoin Story, which I launched just over 2 years ago in the summer of 2023. And also, I run my own self-custody mentoring service called Become Unruggable, which I launched earlier this year when I essentially left my 9-to-5 jobs end of last year and went full-time to work on Bitcoin, sharing stories and at the same time helping people move into self-custody. But my journey started in mid-2017. So I'm coming up, well, actually, I crossed 8-year mark. Been in the space for a few cycles. I used to be a financial analyst before. And since essentially Bitcoin discovering me, not me discovering Bitcoin, where clients wanted to trade Bitcoin and a variety of shitcoins, that's kind of what took me in. And it took me about solid 3 years to differentiate Bitcoin and the whole shitcoinery casino. And then from 2020, I just went all into Bitcoin, just full blown. Not even Bitcoin maxi, but freedom maxi, because that's why maybe we can go into this in a little while. Bitcoin essentially gives you the full-blown freedom, and that's what I want to help people, really achieve the full sovereign living and being free to live the life that you really want to live. So in a nutshell, that's Gigi.
That's awesome. Financial analyst, I love that. And I love the fact that basically people brought Bitcoin to you and like, hey, like, what are you thinking about that?
Correct. Yeah. It was, thinking back, it feels like yesterday. It was 2017, and I'm working with these clients at the FX brokerage, and everybody wanted to trade Bitcoin and Ethereum, but nobody knew what it was. I would ask every person like, well, what is Bitcoin? What is Ethereum? And 99% of people said, I have no idea. And the 1% said it's a cryptocurrency. And I said, fantastic. What's a cryptocurrency? And the conversation ended. And I was like, wow, there's this phenomena. Everybody wants to trade this new digital asset class, but nobody knows what it is. And that's how I went down the pathway of thinking, I'm going to find an educational consultancy to funnel to these clients so they learn about this asset class so they could trade more on this brokerage account. And as a result, I get a bonus because they're trading more. But in the end, apart from good old Andreas Antonopoulos and like a handful of other resources, there was nothing back in 2017. Where today it's kind of the bipolar. We went from hardly any Bitcoin education to a plethora of Bitcoin education on all different platforms. And it, I don't want to downgrade any education, but like now I would say it's really hard for someone entering Bitcoin. Like, where do they start? There is so much choice. It's like the paradox, Robin. What's better, to have no choice or to have too much choice, So that's kind of how I see where we are.
I don't know. I'm not sure if you have too much choice, actually. Like, when we are deep in the Bitcoin bubble, it feels like there's so many podcasts, there's so many things out there, and there are a lot of podcasts. But if you think about how many successful podcasts do we have? Like, how many podcasts are there that have like 100K listeners per week?
Not many.
Do we even have one? Like, honestly, like, I don't know if Peter McCormick gets 100K per week. Maybe, like, probably he gets it. But he also doesn't do the, like, maybe we have like 3 or 4. I don't know the viewing stats of everyone. Do we even have one that has like 1 million? So like, we have a lot of, like, you can still dive deep and you can, like, if you search, you find a lot of like Bitcoin content. But man, I think we have to do a better job in like, getting the Bitcoin gospel out there. Or for example, we have a lot of people on Twitter, but then you look on LinkedIn and there's like nobody. We have a lot of people maybe doing podcasts. But how many people do a short TikTok form content? Like, I don't watch it. That's probably why we don't have that content, because like nobody watches. Bitcoiners have a low time preference, so they don't watch TikTok.
Maybe. No, I mean, to reiterate what I meant by, like, for example, like, not that I do, but like if you type in Bitcoin into Udemy, right? Like there's like hundreds of courses, which most of them are gibberish, but still, there is this plethora of a lot of noise, but not that much signal. So I think I fully agree with you, Robin. We should do a better job on spreading the Bitcoin gospel, but I guess doing it, I don't know if that's subjective, but in the right way, focusing on the right things, keeping your keys, running a node, making your own decisions on what does Bitcoin mean to you instead of seeing what Robin thinks or what Gigi thinks or what Matt Odell thinks. It's more of sovereign thinking. I think that is a crucial part, and that's what Bitcoin gives you. You can run any client you want. You can store your keys on any hardware wallet you want. It's open source, right? That's the beauty of it.
I love that. And I very much agree with that. We definitely, like, there, you can find yourself with a lot of different options. And I think it's a good thing. People fall down the rabbit hole. And what I also say always is, like, we need many different voices, because I don't, but for example, a sailor maybe speaks to the stock pros and speaks to people that like are into stocks, like myself. Like, I was into stocks before, so he spoke really to me when I first came into the Bitcoin scene in 2020. Was also like when he came in there. But someone else might need more technical one. Maybe someone else needs more of the Freedom Maxi, like we are now. Like how I got to be a Freedom Maxi in my journey from stock pro to Freedom Maxi, I guess in the last 5 years. And so we need many different voices, from like a random teacher that's just like actually teaches biology, and all of a sudden he's like, oh yeah, like I find that Bitcoin thing really fascinating. And from the perspective of the biology teacher, other biology teacher might resonate with him better and is more relatable to like someone else. Like, I don't know, it's a weird thing of like, we have many different options, but I want to have an individual option for almost every single person, to have a truly decentralized a view of Bitcoin, and a truly decentralized kind of like gateway how you can come to your Bitcoin narrative also in a sense, like but it is confusing, like if you first come in, especially it gets confusing because there's like the Bitcoin freedom maxis, Bitcoin maxis, and then there's like the crypto crowd, and you're like, oh shit, like what should I believe now? Like they're all saying different things. So I think that's like very difficult, but it's a general problem, I guess, in the world of internet.
No, it is for sure. And, I can fully relate that different people can relate to different personalities. As you said, may that be, financial stocks background, may that be medical background, may that be legal background. Like I've seen there's the Bitcoin doctors that have their own shows, and, any doctor's like, let me listen to, what this person from my industry is saying. So I think that's the right thing. And we should have a more diversified point of view. Because at the end of the day, different people, different content speaks to different people. So we can't just have everybody listening to one podcast or reading one book and having that aha moment. Some people, get it in different circumstances.
Absolutely, 100%. By the way, let's dive a little bit into this freedom maximalist. You said before that you are more freedom maximalist than a Bitcoiner, which I fully agree. And like and I think like if you're a freedom maxi, you get to be a Bitcoin maxi along
Very
the way.
true.
It's just like how do you get to the conclusion? What do you mean by like you are a freedom maximalist, and what does this mean for you?
Sure. So the path to freedom maximalism came through Bitcoin maximalism, but I feel like Bitcoin maximalism gets a little bit of a negative connotation. People, when they hear Bitcoin maximalists, they just think, we're headless nutters just pushing, telling everyone buy Bitcoin, like Bitcoin's the best asset class in the world. Whereas through my journey of going deeper and deeper in the rabbit hole, Bitcoin opened up the Pandora's box to freedom, what I call, and that is freedom of where I want to live, freedom of what I want to ingest in my body, from nutrition to drinks to alternative medicine to how I use the internet protocols. So what devices I use, looking more into Linux, looking into Graphene OS, ditching the Apple ecosystem and Android. So that's what Bitcoin opened up to me. And that's how I came to this current conclusion of being a freedom maximalist, which means I'm not reliant on a single entity or operating system. And that even extends to social platforms like the YouTubes, the Twitters, or TikTok. I don't really use TikTok, but I mean, everything is censorable, just like it was in money. And then we have Nostr, which I've been using more and more of over the last 12 to 24 months, where it's like Bitcoin has given me full freedom to control my money and my assets. And Nostr has given me full control to have full control over my digital data. May that be posts, may that be videos, may that be pictures. And who knows what happens in the next 5-10 years on the freedom tech aspect. There's so much development happening out there. I feel like there's too much negativity. If you're just on the Twitter X and reading all the current drama that we have, I don't think I need to bring it up. Everybody knows what is being discussed. Under the bonnet, there is so much freedom tech being built by developers all over the world that just doesn't get attention. But that's fine. Once the storm is out, those projects will come to fruition and will come to the surface. So that's what I'm really bullish about in the freedom aspect.
It's fun because I often I try to make content as beginner friendly as possible, and I do this of one reason. And you talked about core versus not the debate currently, and I asked the question in the community like, will you be running Bitcoin Core V30? Will you be running Bitcoin Core but not V30? Or will you be running Bitcoin Not? Or will you be running something completely else? And I got a lot of comments saying like, what? Like, what is Bitcoin Core?
Did you get some hate?
I did not get hate because
okay.
There's always people that you better be on that side. I'm like, and I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm on the side that I am, and if you hate my side, then don't join me. Yeah, exactly. Like, if you hate my opinion, then you can just watch someone else. Like, you don't need to.
Very true.
You don't need to agree with me. But the interesting thing I got there was like people saying, "What are you talking about? Like what is Bitcoin V30? Like what is the core thing? What is knots? Like I've never heard that word knots. And so I feel like sometimes if you talk and think and research Bitcoin every single day, this Bitcoin core versus knots seems like a huge fucking topic. But I think the reality is there's like a small, loud group that actually cares.
That's true. And amplifies it to the whole space, especially on Twitter, which is kind of the echo chamber, the center plaza square of Bitcoiners, where they get to shout at each other.
Very, very true. I love that explanation. Why is it actually so hard? Because this is something that I struggle a lot with. Like, why is it so hard for people to take self-sovereignty, being that running your own node, being that self-custody, being more on privacy and all that? And I know coming from me, it's a little weird when I talk about privacy because I have like 1-2 hour videos every single day recorded of me with my full name on all my opinions. But why is that so hard for people to get into self-custody and running your own node and all of that, like freedom, maximalist stuff, I would say?
Sure. So it's a great question. I was tackling that question for a long time, and kind of the conclusion I came to, and I might be wrong, so don't hold me by it, but my take on it is we as a humanity over the last 100 years have been really softened down and have been really let go of all responsibilities. So may that be, we don't hold our medical records. We don't hold our money in most cases at home. We hold it in a bank where we think it's safe, and it's not actually our money. It's an IOU that money is actually mine. And everything else, essentially, I mean, whatever you name it, apart from Bitcoin, we don't really own nothing. So that's why I think it's super hard for people that get exposed to Bitcoin, which is the minority of the global population. To them, it's such an abnormal thing to actually hold their keys, and they see their crypto exchanges, no matter if it's crypto exchange or Bitcoin only exchange, they see it as their safe bank. So they relate it to ever since they were born, ever since they got a bank account, the money is safe. So they have the same ideology. The Bitcoin will be safe on an exchange. To me, it's crazy that we've had so many huge exchanges collapse, going all the way back from MTGOX over a decade ago to Quadriga to FTX to who knows which one's going to happen. And they are going to happen in the future. And yet still people trust these exchanges. Now, I don't know if it's a lack of responsibility or plain laziness or perhaps fear of taking full responsibility. This goes back to what I'm mentioning, that people got really soft where we were programmed to let go of responsibilities and third parties will, help us and hold things on our behalf. And now you have the chance to hold your own keys to, in my eyes, the most valuable asset that's ever been created. And it's kind of like, wow, what if I don't want to swear, but F it up, right? Like, what if I lose it? Like, it's done. There is no reset password. So I think people are scared. And also at the same time, they just think, third party is a safer option. I've been doing the same thing with all my other things. And I'll just do the same thing with Bitcoin. But that's fundamentally the wrong mindset to have. I mean, the whole point of Bitcoin is, not your keys, not your coins. I mean, that quote has been said so many times and should be said so many times, because at the end of the day, if you don't hold your Bitcoin, I'm sorry, but it's not your Bitcoin. If you hold it on Coinbase, if you hold it on Strike, if you hold it on River, wherever you want to hold it, it's essentially an IOU to coins that are yours. But until you withdraw them into your cold storage, you have no idea what's happening to your Bitcoin. Today, it's so simple to do it that there is absolutely no reason for you not to be self-custodying your coins and not being running a node. I mean, if you plainly don't do those two simple things, and if you don't know where to start, I mean, Become Unruggable was launched for that specific reason, but not just to show my own stuff. There's, Bitcoin sessions, BTC mentors, the great guys at Bitcoin Way, Tony, the guys down under, Bitcoin advisors, there's so many fantastic resources out there and people that can hold your hand and, move you into self-custody, that there's absolutely no reason you should be trusting third parties to hold your precious Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's almost like if you at this point, there's so many products, services, and options out there for you. If you don't hold your own keys, you're just being lazy at that point.
Yeah.
And the laziness
not just
comes
lazy,
from...
sorry for interrupting, but careless. I think it's important the fact, like lazy, like we can all get lazy and complacent, but like careless, like not caring that you hold your own keys, I think is a super important part that most people don't really focus on.
Careless. Yeah. They no longer care about their own, and this is even worse. Having to I don't care. But it's funny how, because it depends on where in the geographic location you are. It depends on like how many self-custody people there are, and there are a lot of people that really say like, oh, like we don't care about the self-custody. I trust my bank, I trust this, I trust that, or like, oh, I want to have it in a self-custody, I want to have it in like a 401k, I want to have it in an ETF, like all of that. And of course, like if you cannot get the money out, like you don't have an option. But in most cases you can get it out. I would also say like Bitcoin in self-custody, even though a Bitcoin is a Bitcoin, in Bitcoin in self-custody is more worth, not meaning right now, but meaning in the future, because you might lose the other one. It's like you might have 100% of the Bitcoin in self-custody, but like 0 in non-self-custody.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think to a certain extent, like the big entities to blame on this, I think it's exchanges themselves. Most exchanges, the big ones, the Bitstamp, Binance, Kraken, they don't really push you to self-custody. It's all kind of, you get there to buy your Bitcoin or whatever the coin, and then you're bombarded with this, abnormal casino of shitcoinery and airdrops and all that crap. And to my knowledge, there's only 2 exchanges, which actually span out from the same country of Canada. The first one being, of course, as the hat that I'm wearing. Shout out to Bull Bitcoin, my favorite Bitcoin and one of the oldest Bitcoin only exchanges, which is non-custodial, and as well with the Bitcoin well. They're both non-custodial. You essentially, when you want to buy Bitcoin, you need to input your on-chain address or your Liquid or Lightning address. I'm speaking now on the Bull Bitcoin. I have no idea how Bitcoin well works, but on the Bull Bitcoin aspect, since 2014 when they launched, they never custodied your Bitcoin. You always need to input your address. You wire your euros or whatever currency you're using to your account in exchange. And then when you want to buy or set a limit order, you need to put in your address of your cold storage so it goes straight in there. And I think that's a phenomenal way to actually push people to self-custody, where if you don't input the address of your cold storage, you can't buy the Bitcoin. But these are the minority. Majority of exchanges, they all, grasp you, come in, come trade with us, and then we'll unravel all this 50x leverage and futures and all that noise, instead of you just buying stacks quietly, stacking them in your cold storage and getting on with your life, without stressing out what's happening in the market.
Yeah, there's actually not a lot. I know one more. It's Relay in Switzerland. They also are self-custodial. They give you like a wallet. They never hold it. And there are some like smaller peer-to-peer things, where of course, like if it's peer-to-peer, like, it's never on exchange, because otherwise it wouldn't be peer-to-peer. But it's not that many. Relay and I think Bull Bitcoin and Bitcoin Well are great examples, because those are huge exchanges. Like those are like big companies, and they are. I don't know about Bull Bitcoin that much, and about Bitcoin Well also not. I had people from them already in the show. I just know that Relay now gets the MiCA license in Europe. Probably the other ones that are, if they are in Europe also, and this is really interesting, where they kind of defend of like, hey, we have self-custody and we only have self-custody for our clients. It makes a good stand, I think, in the regulation, because a lot of people say like, oh, like regulations, politics doesn't matter. I think politics matters a lot to you. Maybe not to Bitcoin, but you are still like in their monopoly of violence. You're
in their playground.
In their playground, and people are like, oh yeah, like I don't care, I have my own keys. Yeah, but how long do they have to put you in a cell for you to give them the keys? A week?
That's true.
A month? a year, 2 years. I don't know. Like at some point you're like, yeah, I'll give you my keys and I want to see my family. Like, like, it's nice that you don't have to give it to them and they cannot get it out of you unless you consent. But if they have the monopoly on violence, you are still in their control. Just on that, because I think Bitcoiners should care a little bit more on what the political level is doing, on observing it, and if it's the wrong direction, pushing in the other direction. And I know there are a lot of people, and I'm curious on what you think. They say like, if we engage with the political group, we are strengthening them. And there is some merits to that, but I think we have to deal with the reality that this thing is still here and to defend our freedom as good as possible. If Bitcoin defunds politics and governments in like 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, 100 years, whatever, that's great. But till this is not the case, we should mark our stance and also fight for our freedom in politics.
Big question, Robin. Where do I begin? So, politics plays a big role in our lives today, even if we zoom out of the Bitcoin specter. Everything is commanded by politics. And unfortunately, most of those decisions are not done by me, you, and the average person. If we're focusing now on the European Union, the European Commission, the decision makers were never voted in. There were a select group of people that were voted in by very powerful people, which we average people never voted in. So on the argument, should we consolidate them and work with them to implement things? I think yes, but at the same time, I think it can only go so far because they have bigger agendas where giving people sovereignty, privacy, and freedom is the last thing they want. And I'm not talking about the EU. If we look at Asia, specifically China, it's all about controlling their citizens. And I think that trickles and will be trickling down to EU and US as well. I don't know what's happening in Latin America. There's bigger issues at stake with inflation than controlling other people. But what I don't like about politics is the high time preference. What I mean by that is if we look at presidential elections, right? In every country, most countries, you get a new president, 4-year term. They all preach they're going to do X, Y, Z. They get in, they do the total opposite. They get paychecks from big companies to do what they want them to do. And then 4 years passes, they go through the revolving door, they're out, and then the new player comes in. There's no longevity in it. So with Bitcoin, I think this is a monetary system that will be here around for hundreds, if not thousands of years, depending on how things unravel. And in that sense, it's just going to take a lot of time until people on the political level adopt it, not through persuasion or being taught it, but just being born into it. And what I mean, us Bitcoiners that have children today, to my daughters and every other Bitcoiner that has kids, we are not converting them to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is just the best form of money there is. Like they are just born into it. So I think it's a matter of time, 10, 20, 30 years until our kids and other kids get into positions of power. And they don't have to be lectured and consulted on why Bitcoin is the right thing. They know it's the right thing. So I think it's just a matter of time until, on the political level, Bitcoin is seen as something vital to humanity. But trying to, and as much as I respect Samson Mao and Jan3 and everything they're doing, I think it's still important to open up the eyes to them. But unfortunately, I don't want to sound like I'm pro for monarchies. Some listeners might not like this, but monarchies actually are thinking about what can we do for our people in 10, 20, 30 years, whereas kind of the democratic political system we have now, which has been sold to us that they help us humans, the general public, they actually destroy us with regulations. And we can go into detail this whole travel rule that we have in Europe. I think it's an oxymoron. It's ridiculous. Like the whole point of Bitcoin is peer-to-peer trading anonymously and verifiably by everyone, instead of now in EU, if you're withdrawing from a centralized exchange, you need to input the name, the address, or whatever other information they collect of who you're sending your Bitcoin to, which totally defeats the purpose. And I think trying to get those people to tell them, no, actually, this is wrong. It's all about freedom. Give people their privacy. It's tough because EU, especially with the digital euro and the whole surveillance, it's going in the opposite direction. Personally, I didn't like it. And thankfully to Bitcoin, I voted with my feet. I packed up last year. I went somewhere else. Most people will not like it, but I've got my own life. I've got my own priorities with kids. I mean, you can go anywhere you want in this world. There's over 185 countries, some more pro Bitcoin, some less pro Bitcoin. And going back to freedom maximalism, if I don't like how I'm treated, may that be through policies, may that be through laws, regulations, and generally how the environment is, I can just pack up and go. Now, I know that's easier said than done, but you have that option, which I think is super important.
That's super interesting. With the new world where we have more and more remote work possibilities, where we have money that it's borderless, like Bitcoin, or Bitcoin only, and where still the governments try to draw those borders, even though those borders kind of no longer exist that much, because we have borderless work, we have borderless money, we can do everything from everywhere. How do you think will this and Bitcoin change kind of the political level?
I think so going back to one of my favorite books that I read about a year ago, it's called The Sovereign Individual. And anybody listening to this episode right now and is an avid reader, definitely if you haven't, read The Sovereign Individual. It's a book that was written in the mid 1990s, so 30 years, give or take. And it described kind of what we're living today with Bitcoin, where people will become sovereign individuals in the sense of the governments will be fighting to attract people to come live in their country, because if what I just said, if you're unsatisfied with the regulatory system, with the financial, with the political system, you can just pack up and go work from anywhere. And in that book that was written 30 years ago, it said there's going to be a digital currency, which will be uncontrollable, not peer-to-peer, but it'll be unconfiscatable, and you will be able to conduct business from anywhere in the world, which is exactly what you can do today. But until Bitcoin, you had to rely on the banks doing the whole KYC procedure, getting the banking license, getting all that hurdles, which is a nightmare. And today with the internet, you can communicate and sell your products to all 8 billion people in the world. And you can accept payment borderlessly without any intermediary, any restrictions, any sanctions. I mean, nobody, no matter who it is in the world, they cannot stop you sending those specific sats to another wallet. And I think that's super powerful. And with time, people, I guess today we are living through a very turbulent time where there's so much chaos out there, from everything, from the political structure to migration, to financial situation, to health problems, to just generally there's so much crap built on. And then there's us Bitcoin preachers saying, guys, like, forget everything. We have Bitcoin, new hope and everything. And people are just like, I don't have time for this. Like, I need to make money to pay my next bills. And I think that's the big problem, where the people that really need Bitcoin are being, suffocated by the corrupt system of just slaving away for someone else and paying their debts, instead of unplugging, like stepping out of the arena and saying, you know what? Fuck this. I'm going my own way. And, I want to build the life that I want to do. And anyone can do that today, but it takes courage. It takes big balls, especially if you have a family, because then you're not, you don't have to feed yourself. For example, I could live on pot noodles for 3 years, Robin, like, I don't care. But I have 2 small daughters, and like last year for me to take the courageous move to be like, I'm done with the legacy system. I'm done with 9 to 5. I'm done with having bosses and dealing with hierarchy and HR departments and all that soul sucking crap, was a big decision. But I'm so happy now, 9 months later, that I did it. I even took, as I said, a month off just to recalibrate, refocus on things, reflect on how things are going and where I want to go forward. That it's the best decision I did in a long time.
I love that. What is actually your, like, on those holidays, at least for me, I always think a lot. If I have like a week or 2 weeks, like I've never done more than 2 weeks, but if I have like 1 or 2 weeks where I said like, oh, I will not do anything, and I will focus on just being in the moment and relaxing. I don't know how you spent the month, but I imagine you really purposely try to just spend time with the family and not do any work. When I do this, I have the craziest thoughts. I have the best ideas. And I really get a feeling of like, oh, what's important and what's not. How was it for you getting 1 month off? And what were kind of the learnings you had from that 1 month?
Yeah, I mean, it's the first time I took a month off ever in my life for a vacation. There was some certain events, there was some big, I attended a family wedding. I attended a big birthday of my mother. It was a round number. I celebrated my 10-year marriage anniversary. Most people have no idea that I got married very young. So there was a few milestones that were spread out across this month, where it was like, we're taking this month off just to spend time. With inflation, it was the most expensive thing I ever spent money on, but I don't regret any sat that was spent on it. It was all in the right things. And at the end of the day, we have this money not to hoard it forever. Like some people say, never sell your Bitcoin. Bitcoin is here to live the life that you want. So we really, maxed it out to the possible. But what I learned, and kind of the takeaway from this holiday, was to slow down a little bit and take everything at surface value, especially today where we have this whole, going back to the knots and core debate. I think it's very overblown. And even, not that I'm advocating for core V30, but even if you run it, I mean, Bitcoin's not going to die. That being said, full disclosure, I've been running knots since May. So it's been about, how many months? 6 months or so? 5-6 months. By the way, going back to what you said with your tweet, when you asked that question, what to run, and you got so much thing, and asked you, did you get hate? That was my personal, I have a very small X account, but that was my most viral post when I did a screenshot on my Start 9 that I'm running knots. Usually my posts get like 1,000, 2,000 impressions, and that post went like over 50,000. So it did like 50x in a matter of 2-3 days. And I've never been called a retard so many times. I've never been called, you have no idea what you're doing, this, that. And I was like, whoa. I was like, guys, and there was a quote where I said, like, don't rely, I'm butchering my own quote, but basically I said something along the lines like, you can run whatever you want. Like, that's what's being a sovereign individual, And to me, it was kind of like an aha moment, like, what the hell? Like, I just chose my own client, and people like really don't like it, and people are bashing it. And I realized, wow, like there's something bigger, larger at scale here. But not to dwell on it. At the end of the day, even if I'm wrong, I'll admit it. It takes also a lot of courage to admit if you're wrong. And maybe in the future I am wrong by running knots. But at the moment, if I have a choice of running core and knots, I run knots, but that doesn't mean I'm telling everyone listening to this episode, like switch your client right now. Do your own research, speak to the people in the space, and make your own decision. And, we all make mistakes. We're humans. I mean, even AIs, computers make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. But at the end of the day, go with what your gut feels. So circling back now to your question with the lessons learned from the vacation was, stepping back, it gave me time to reflect over the things that I'm doing, the outlook, how I want to go. As I mentioned, I've been running this podcast more or less similar to you. So, or maybe I started a few months before that. So it's been over 2 years. And one thing I came to realize, and I guess, I don't know when this episode will drop, but probably by then you already see, I'm going to switch my format a little bit where I'll be doing solo monologues. So I'll do solo episodes, focusing on different parts and focusing on important aspects, which, as we said, are not discussed, the aspect of running your own nodes or the current take on the debate, not weighing on any side, but just bringing some facts and bringing some food for thought for people to process in kind of a top level manner, which I think will be responsive. And people have been telling me for the past year, Gigi, why don't you do solo episodes and, just share your thoughts? And I was like, no, maybe sometime. But it took me this 1 month to really sit down and think of it through, the late nights, on the terrace, looking into the stars and saying, you know what, maybe I should pivot, and that being said, I'm still going to do podcasts with guests, but like doing more of my own takes and sharing my own deeper thoughts and analysis on aspects. So that wouldn't have been possible if I wouldn't have taken the 1 month long holiday. Maybe a month is a bit too much, but hey, I just mentioned I had different reasons and different aspects why to take so long. And actually, I don't regret it. I came back yesterday. Here we are next day on Robin's show, and I've got a full list of things that I'm going to get cracking in the next few weeks. So I'm really bullish on what's to come.
I finally and officially mine Bitcoin. This is not just something to stack more Satoshis, but it's most importantly also to support the network. Individual miners are the ones that keep the Bitcoin network decentralized. And by the way, you get KYC-free Bitcoin. That's why I use simple mining. I get an actual proper Bitcoin miner. They set it up for me. They repair it if it breaks down. And most importantly, they let me choose the pool and even connect my own full node. I'm completely sovereign and I'm completely in control, and I can sign up with Ocean, no account needed. I just give them a Bitcoin address and then there's mining going on. No KYC, nothing. So if you're ready to mine Bitcoin, go to simplemining.io, tell them you come from Robin, and let's mine Bitcoin together. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called Microseed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With Microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because Microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. You get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Again, that's microseed.io to get your last backup tool you ever need. The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly finding that correct setup for you personally. They're also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation. There's so much in there. I love it. I want to spend some time because I think you are one of the, and by the way, I love that you're doing solo episodes. I think we need as many voices as possible and I get also those questions more and more. And I've decided to actually start live streaming because people more and more ask me questions. And I'm a huge fan of just like hanging out with people and like having a conversation. And I was like, now I only have conversations with guests, but I now want to start, if it's successful, like I will, I'm a very market driven guy. It's like I will start a live stream and I will measure the success by how many people I can really make an impact with, and like how many people actually like it. And I measure that by like DMs coming and saying like, oh, I love that one and stuff like that. And so I will start doing like a live stream once a week and just like hanging out with my audience and having some impact input in the beginning. And then if there's any questions, like ask me anything basically, because I get more and more DMs on that. So like, just like kudos to you, because I think it's extremely important that each and every one of us, puts out their own opinion, their own perspective on life on Bitcoin. And one thing I wanted to share with you, I've not done a lot of tweets on core versus nots, but the few I have done went completely crazy. The before one I shared with you was actually a community question that I did on YouTube, and there it's a little less violent, I would say. When it comes to that topic, just a little less toxic. But I did this on on Twitter, and the weirdest thing happened. I just asked, "Hi Grog, if I run my own Bitcoin node, which should I choose, Bitcoin Core or Bitcoin Nodes? Please give me an in-depth breakdown of the pros and cons of each. Also, based on their differences, what should be the core belief system guiding my choice?" And I did that only because I was like, I am curious what Grok and what AI will say, and I was like, oh, okay, let's do it publicly. I never did that weird like in public grokking, but I was like, this might be an interesting thing to start with. And as you can see, like I have like what do I have now? 21,000 followers. I got 140,000 views on that, which is absolutely crazy because I didn't even post any opinions. Like I literally just asked a freaking question, and people blocked me for that. I was searching it, but I couldn't find it, unfortunately. And this was this whole debate online. People blocked me for that, and I was like, wait, so you did not like that I asked like AI a question? And I was kind of like, as in some replies, I was like taking the core side, and some replies were taking the not side. And I was like, what is that? What is that? Like, I was trying to get the best out of like the AI and taking the stance and like arguing with it. But I don't know why it's so emotional. And that's why I wanted to ask you, like, why? Their Knots has been around before. Like Knots is not something that came out in 2025. There have been people that run Knots like way before 2025 came around, and years ago. Why is it now such a big debate, and why is it so emotional? And when I talk with a lot of people that have run Knots before up return already, they tell me up return is not that big of a deal. I hate core because of other reasons. I talked with Mr. Nom, and he was telling me he runs Knots since way before, and he's telling me if core and Knots would have been exactly the same thing up until up return, he would still stuck with core, because he thinks like this whole filter thing is like a non thing. He thinks core messed up way bigger things that nobody cared about. I don't know if you have a good question and good answer to that, but why are people so obsessed with that up return emotional debate?
All right. So I think, well, one factor is, I think the other big event where we had so much debates and discussions and so much weight on current conflict was 8 years ago during the block size wars, right? And in the end, who won? It was the small blockers, aka the node runners. The majority, the big exchanges, the miners, everybody wanted to increase the block size. And even though they had so much influence, it goes down to the importance of running your own node. You choose what client to run. And in the end, Bitcoin survived as it was, and Bitcoin Cash and all other forks of Bitcoin, Bitcoin SV and all the others, they essentially died out. And I think now, today, there's so much at stake with Bitcoin. It's a let's call it $2 trillion market. It's much more significant. And I think there's a lot more forces at play today than 8 years ago. And I think that this whole up return, I mean, first of all, and I'm sure your guest discussed it, there's two different aspects to running the Bitcoin client. And there's the consensus agreement, which is not going to change at all with the up return debate. And there's the policy of, which client you want to run and how much of a up return limit. Is it 80 bytes or is it 100,000, which Core V30 wants to implement? Emotions, I think it's been, I don't want to say sponsored, but like there is influence on both sides that are kind of that brought it up this high. Maybe even it might sound a little bit contradictory, but on the not side, even though I run knots, I think there's been a lot of like backlash and a lot of like, how shall I put it? Not for it to come across, but like feeling like that you're being bullied, but then you're bullying back. And I think Core as developers should fully be independent from any external influence. And I think that has been jeopardized. I don't have facts. I cannot verify it, but from what I heard and from what I've been following in all my years, over time, there's been greater forces and a lot of money being thrown at these developers, and you can't blame them. They're human beings. You know, if someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, here's $1 million, you know, if you implement this thing," most people won't even notice. Like, you're probably going to do it. And today with Citria and all these other essentially companies that are backed by huge people, and some of the OGs, may that be, Jameson Lopp, Bellagio, like some of the biggest shareholders of Citria are pushing, even though they're saying they don't need the up return, but it's kind of like they are still sponsoring some of these core devs. I think that is a dangerous route to go on, because once developers, which their main goal should be maintaining what we have already built and what Satoshi blessed the world with, not how do we do different use cases on top of that. Because I think Bitcoin has just one use case, and that is the ultimate monetary system of humanity, period. We don't need smart contracts. We don't need rollups. I've had guests that talked of all these things on my podcast. I don't particularly agree with it. I like hearing these things, but to me, Bitcoin is just the perfect money, and it's in our, and especially the developers, priorities to make sure everything works and we don't F it up. And if we bring in these, even though the up return, bring it up to 100K might not break it today, but what's going to happen in 5 years, in 10 years down the line? If we look at, one of the forks from 8 years ago, Bitcoin SV, Satoshi Vision with Craig Wright and all of those clowns, they increased the up return to 100K, right? And straight away, there was a lot of what we call, and it is, terrible data was stored on those blocks, which essentially could happen again today. And I don't want to go into the conspiracy of us holding, dirty stuff on our nodes and SWAT is going to break through my window and like put me in jail. Potentially could happen, but I don't think that's the main thing. I just think at the end of the day, as Bitcoin is on the aspect of ossification, we don't really need to do any drastic changes because so much relies on Bitcoin. And my last thought on that is, I think perhaps some of the core devs which pushed for this were influenced by external money. And I'm not blaming Citria or anyone else, just call it external money that wants to influence, that wants to take control of Bitcoin, just like governments want to control us through the legacy markets. I'm pretty sure there's some big players in the space that want to control, or at least think they can control Bitcoin, and they have been influencing these devs to push these implementations so they can have a control of it. And I guess they don't have too much Bitcoin in the game, because if you would have a lot of Bitcoin, you would be double questioning on the implementations and changes that you're putting forward. But and this is just my personal thoughts, if you, I don't want to say sold early, but like if you don't have such a significant stack and you are suddenly offered 6-7 digit sums, you are very highly influenced and easy to manipulate to input things. So as much as I try to put that neutral, that's my personal take, what I think is happening in the current debates. But this is actually one of the first videos that I'm going to do a solo take, breaking down this into further things and bringing up different people's opinions and giving my commentary on this current topic.
I'm looking forward to that, like, because I think there's a lot of weird things out there in this debate, and a lot of emotions out there. And I mean, the good thing, I guess, is that people are aware now that there are other implementations to run. Like this wasn't even really a discussion like just a year ago. Now we say, hey, you don't have to pick core. You can pick something else. And I just talked about that with Ratosh in the previous podcast, where if there is an implementation and there is some kind of bug in there, it's a bad thing. But what if we have 3 main implementation and only one actually has this bug, and we have then 2 other ones that kind of don't have that one, and we, how should I say it? And we kind of avoid catastrophe with Bitcoin because we have multiple implementations and more people that actually look out for it. Not even going the route of saying maybe they are malicious, but just saying there might be an introduction of a bug and the other thing didn't do it. So we still have a functioning, like we need a node and a miner that kind of runs that system. And now we can still continue on there and don't need to like roll back the chain or like whatever, like weird.
Well, we can't do that. We're not in the Ethereum camp, right? We can't just magically roll back the chain.
And so having one more implementation, maybe even like 3-4 in the future that are popular, I think it's only a good thing. Like I love it.
I agree. I mean, the more choice, the merrier. I think Samson Mao a few months ago said kind of on X, he said like, why don't we build more clients? Like give people more choices. If you're not sure, core versus not, let's do another one, At the same time, you don't want to go too crazy. You don't want like a plethora, like with altcoins, like there's so many to choose from. The same thing with clients, but the more the merrier. But one thing I think I want to bring back is also another aspect of why we find ourselves where we do today with this debate is another force I feel like is trying to divide Bitcoiners, because it doesn't matter if you run knots or if you run core, you're still a Bitcoiner. In 90% of things, we are all fighting for freedom, from separating money from the state and being sovereign, free individuals to pursue our lives. So at the same time as going back to politics, which I know is close to your heart, politics was always on conquer and divide, right? And since they can't really take over Bitcoin, they can conquer it and divide it, which potentially could be happening right now. So maybe it's not even these corporations that are influencing, but maybe there's some governmental, as I'd like to call alphabet agencies, financing both sides to kind of fight each other, so that we kind of, in the hope that, we're going to destroy each other in this debate. So that's maybe another thing. But at the end of the day, people should be remembered, no matter which client you run, we're all Bitcoiners. We're all on the same side of the team. We're fighting the old legacy system. I wouldn't even say fighting. We are building the parallel system. The best thing you can do today is not go out and protest in the streets, because you will most likely end up in a jail cell. But what you can do is contribute to the parallel system. If you're a coder, build free and open source code. If you're a content creator, go out and, do solo videos, do, podcast interviews, do audiobooks, or just share resources on different, platforms. Do community events, teach people about the alternative system. So there's so many things we can do in parallel. So, and this to me shifted maybe 12 to 24 months ago, where I stopped trying to fight the system, because I realized you're not going to get anywhere, and just focus on building. And that's why personally, I'm also looking into start learning how to, as it's famously called now, vibe coding, but like learning Python and then Rust, which most Bitcoin applications are written in Rust today, to contribute as well. Because some of my favorite projects, such as, BTC Pay Server, Liana Wallet, they're all open source, and anybody on GitHub can contribute, see, what they need help with and contribute code. And that's super rewarding. And you might not get financially paid for it, but sometimes the greatest achievements and the greatest feelings are not monetary ones, but you contributing to something that you're very passionate about and that helps free up other people's lives. So that's where I would like to contribute as well.
I love that. And as one last topic before we get to the end routines of the podcast, I would like to ask you the very obvious question that I might have actually should have started with, is like, how do we become unruggable?
Great question. Well, there's a few different steps, which I cover, of course, in my program. But top level, I mean, becoming unruggable is, first of all, generating your seeds in the safe and correct way, storing them on the cold storage of your choice. There is no best perfect. I have a choice of 3-4 that I personally use and I offer to people. And thirdly, running your own node. And fourthly, keeping your seeds geographically distributed in different mediums and different locations, so that you never lose your access to your Bitcoin. So it's a pretty straightforward option, but as easy as it sounds, there's many different routes that you can take. And depending if you're a 25-year-old, fresh out of student adult, or if you're 70-year-old, there's different routes to become an unruggable. which I focus on with my mentees.
Love that. Really cool. We have a question that I asked each and every one of my guests that are new on the podcast. And the question is, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
Good question. What can you learn from me apart from Bitcoin? I guess to live your life on your own terms. Even though Bitcoin has given me this freedom, I really push people today in the year of 2025 to really focus on what they love doing and just pursue that. And even if it's not the most monetary positive result in the long term, if you do something that you love, the money will follow. But more importantly, the money, you will live a fulfilled life, which I think is the most important thing, because our life is very short on this planet. Like from the time that we're born to the time that we die, even if we live up to 80, 90, 100 years, it's a drop in the ocean of humanity's history. And instead of focusing on getting that next promotion or getting that higher paycheck, we should focus on what can I do in this world to contribute to other people and be self-satisfied. And it has nothing to do with Bitcoining. That has nothing to do with podcasting. But those aspects, those tools, the internet protocol, the Bitcoin protocol, and Nostr protocol give you the opportunity to pursue whatever you're interested in. And that's what I think I try to push through my message without actually focusing it fully on Bitcoin, is just living the life that you truly want and leaving this world a little bit better than you found it when you entered.
And it's so freaking hard for people. Like it's so hard. I have a very good friend in Bitcoin. Obviously I won't say his name, who is financially well off. And he has a wife who is also financially well off. And the wife still works at her job. And the only reason is because she feels guilty about not leaving it, because she has a responsible role in there. They both could afford not to work. And she's so attached to the job that she doesn't like. That's the main thing. Like she doesn't like that job, and she still cannot quit. And when I heard that story, I'm like, quitting and your job and pursuing your dreams not always is a money problem. It's sometimes also like a mindset and mentality problem. As you said, money will follow. Just do the thing.
Yeah, I mean, I fully relate. And I know some people in the same position that make fantastic money in fiat terms, that they're not Bitcoiners, but they really don't enjoy what they're doing, but they keep doing it because they've been doing it for the last few decades. And the system that we're brought up and how education teaches us, we go through schools, we go to high school, we go to university, we get a good job, we work until we're 55, 60, and then we retire and kind of enjoy the fruits of our labor. Most cases in today's world, people at the 60s, unfortunately, are either financially unstable, are in terrible health, may that be cancers and other things. And you're kind of been lied to your whole life that you will enjoy retirement, your golden age, where I think it shouldn't be that way. You shouldn't be slaving away your greatest years of your life. And an aspect of retirement, like we got talking right before you clicked the record button, you told me there's no way I could take a month off. Like, what am I going to do in a month? And most probably when you're going to be 60 years old, you're not going to change that thought, like retire now, like I'm done. Like, if you are capable to do something to provide value to this world, you will do it forever. And I think everybody should. Also, there's discussion in Bitcoin when, 100% you've seen these questions like, could you retire with 10 Bitcoin? Or how many Bitcoin do you need to retire? And I always ask, I speak to myself. I'm like, what are these questions? Like, even if I'd have 1,000 Bitcoin, I would still be doing something. It's not like you have X amount of Bitcoin or X amount of fiat, and then suddenly you're just sipping pina coladas on the beach. There's only so long you can do that, like 2, 3, 4 weeks. And then you're sick of it. You're like, what do I do next? And with Bitcoin and focusing on what you love, you can do that to the last minute when the last heartbeat in your body beats, and then you just drop dead, like the happiest death ever. If you love fixing bikes and you're fixing your bike at 95 and you die like tying that clog, it's the it's the most beautiful death, I would say, ever. You know, it's much better than being today, like 70 years old and like on a deathbed in an ICU with all these things plugged into you and you can't even lift your arm up. That's not life, you know, and that's what fiat system has done to humanity. And this is what Bitcoin pulls you out of, where you live, you know, life on your own terms. And through being a Bitcoiner, you start questioning a lot of things. I know you don't drink alcohol, you shared with me. And I stopped drinking as well. And a lot of Bitcoiners, we share a lot of things, like we really take care of our body. So I think as a Bitcoiner, the longevity of not your lifetime, but your health longevity is hugely increased, because I would rather, you know, live 80 years, but be fully healthy in those 80 years than live 100 years. And by 60, like my health is destroyed and I'm just like on a life support machine being wheeled around in a wheelchair in an old people's home, you know? So I think there's so many benefits to adopting Bitcoin, studying Bitcoin, going deeper into it, and starting to live on a Bitcoin standard. You're going to be so mesmerized on your spending habits, where you're not splashing out on the latest orange iPhone or the latest BMW X5 that came out. You really buy things that you really need. Even when you have kids, as hard and maybe as harsh as it would sound, like I get a lot of stuff for my kids, but I don't go excess. Like we don't buy all the time toys. And I ingrained this into my daughters from a young age. I tell them, listen, like when they come up to me and say, Daddy, like, get me this toy. I tell them, well, listen, like, do you really want this toy? And they're like, yeah. And I go, but tell me like the other toys that you have, like how is this one better? And they're like, well, actually it's not better. I want it. And I go, well, baby, I want 10 Bitcoin. I can't just get 10 Bitcoin, right? Like you slowly get to it. And then they calibrate. They're like, actually, yeah, you know what? I'm good with my toys. And they put it back on the shelf without me telling them, put it back on the shelf, doing the authority and, you know, parent. Like I have this conversation with them and I bring it to them. And I think as parents, it's our mission to raise our kids the right way so that they tomorrow, when they go into positions of power, take the right decisions, sovereign decisions, not what they're being told. So as much as we live in a pretty chaotic world right now, and I truly believe in the fourth turning, we are in the fourth turning. So the next decade is going to get much worse. I'm sorry to say, and it's going to get pretty hectic. But after that, I truly think we are going to be entering the new golden age, thanks to all these technological advancements. And of course, thanks to Bitcoin, which will allow us to be the most modern and technologically advanced, and hopefully the most, how do you want to call it? Not camaraderie, but like most aligned incentive civilization to ever be. Because I had a podcast, my first ever roundtable, which was focused on Bitcoin and spirituality. And I had Eric V. Stacks, I had Tomer Stromleit and Lauren Hoddle on it. And Tomer Stromleit said that Bitcoin essentially is the first thing ever in history where we all have something in common, no matter what religion you're from, no matter if you're Christian, Muslim, Jewish. We all abide by one consensus. We have one rule, and we've never had that in human history. And I think there's points like these that don't get enough attention and light online. It's all focused on when 1 million Bitcoin, why I run core and I hate knots. Like there is some fundamental things, which going back to why I want to do solo things, I want to bring light to something that a lot of people don't talk about, but play a vital role into where we are and where we are going forward. So I'm super bullish on the future, low time preference, even if the next few years will be hectic. Hopefully play your cards right, try and minimize the impact on you and family, and just carry on building, keep your head down, keep on, building for the better world that you want to see. Don't wait back and rely and hope that others will do it for you. Contribute and build that world that you want to see.
I love that. That's such an amazing message. I don't want to even add anything to that because it was very wholesome and perfect. And now there comes a question, which is the end routine of the podcast, where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And yes, the previous guest asked you the question, very different from all of that. What is the most annoying thing in Bitcoin?
Most annoying thing in Bitcoin is people that don't have any Bitcoin telling you how wrong you are.
I love that one because it's so true. Man, that's
and
amazing.
By the way, this is not just for Bitcoin. It goes for parenting as well. How many people that don't have kids give parenting advice? And I absolutely hate that. When I get given parenting advice, and I go, well, excuse me, sir, like, how many kids do you have? And they're like, oh, I don't have any kids. I'm like, what are you talking about then? Like, first have kids and then give parenting advice. And the same thing with Bitcoin. So many pre-coiners, as I call them, not coiners, pre-coiners, because at some point they're going to get Bitcoin. They tell me, oh, you're crazy. This is a Ponzi, this, that. I go, well, how much Bitcoin do you have? And they go, I've got none. And I'm like, well, man, first get some Bitcoin, study it, and then you'll see if you really stand by those words.
100%. Man, who gives parent advice if they don't even have kids?
Oh, many people.
Oh,
You'll
gosh.
be surprised.
Yeah, like I don't have kids, so I haven't run into this problem, I guess.
Yeah. You'll see. Well, hopefully not that much, but especially, some things to relating to, for example, screen time, right? Like, say, like, don't like, and I was in the same boat pre-kids. I said, my kids will never have, see a smartphone or have TV until they're, 10 years old. My daughters are 5 and 3, and they already have limited time. It's like 30 minutes to 60 minutes of something that actually gives value, something educational. And you learn that through experience. Pre-kids, I was like, no way, I'm not giving it. And same thing, I get told, like, are you crazy? Like giving, your tablet to your 5-year-old daughter. And I'm like, man, like sometimes like there's the right time and place for it. And it's moderated. It's not like, here's a tablet and, see you at bedtime. Like everything in small quantities is okay. But as soon as you exploit something, may that be sugar, may that be alcohol, may that be hard drugs, life gets fucked up real fast. So keep things in moderation. Don't need to be black or white. There can be some gray. But yeah, thankfully to Bitcoin, we focus on what's important to us and what makes our lives better. And really, as selfish as it sounds, focusing on ourselves, not to flaunt on other people. Like, look at my fancy car or look at my 50,000 euro jacket. Like you've seen this. You go to Bitcoin conferences. Nobody wears, well, some people do. And I don't want to say anything wrong, but like most people don't like go there to expose their wealth. They go there to reconnect and see how, you can build together, collaborate and do great things more than crypto conferences, which is, Gucci jackets and when Lambo and all that nonsense, materialistic stuff, which it's not going to make your life any better. It's actually going to make it worse because you have a lot more things to worry about.
I 100% agree with that. And also I think there's a value in giving kids, access to technology. Like I have nothing to add on the debate because like I've literally never researched that topic or like, as said, like I hadn't had kids. But I just from like first principles thinking, I'm like, yeah, it's probably a good idea that they are not at the tablet the full day and like only doing that. But it might also be a good idea of like giving them access to modern technology so they can actually learn things. But yeah, I guess, as said, I haven't researched it and I don't have kids, so I don't have any qualification on that.
One last thing to add on it, which is like, you can't isolate your kids nowadays from technology. Like at some point, they're going to have to interact with it. And my philosophy has changed where it's better to expose them early on under guidance and supervision and explain things to them than wait until they're like 8, 9 and just here's your iPhone or here's your, smart device and just like do whatever you want with it. So, things in moderation and restrictions and guidance, because kids nowadays, man, like I don't know how kids were before, but they're so advanced, so smart because these brains are like, they're untapped, they're unpropagandized, they're just like sponges taking everything in. So like I never spoke to my daughters as, small children, like, go, caca, like some people do. Like I spoke to them as grown-ups from the minute they were grown. Maybe that's why they're a little bit advanced for their age, but just like we always did through communication and figuring things out together, which I think is super important. So if you embed some stuff and, they know some things that are not good, some things that are good, and I let them, give them the freedom to make up their own decisions, because they are little sovereign individuals of their own. I would be a hypocrite to be trying and push sovereign living, and then I'm like a dictator at home over my wife and kids. So like I give everyone the freedom to do their choices that they want.
I 100% agree with that. It's really, really cool. Yeah, we've covered everything. Thank you so much, Gigi, for being on. Before I let you go, where can people find you and ask you questions?
Yeah, well, thanks a lot, Robin, for having me on. It's been a pleasure. First of all, meeting you this summer in BTC Prague. We've attended many different conferences, but we never seem to cross our paths. And And we finally did. So thank you for having me on. And yeah, anyone listening that wants to reach out, I guess the best place would be on X. So at your BTC story, you'll find me and go by Gigi. Feel free to shoot me a DM. You can find me also on Nostr as well at primal.net/GG or /YBS, your Bitcoin story. And of course, people that want to hear my weekly rants with guests about Bitcoin stories and Bitcoin philosophies, you can find me on YouTube. Just search your Bitcoin story and you'll find me. And yeah, I reply to all DMs. Always happy to help anyone with self-custody or any other questions that they may have with Bitcoin. So yeah, feel free to reach out. Always happy to help. And thank you for everyone for tuning into this episode.
Thank you so much, man, for being on. And also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye. This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.